Accessorizing a Nikon P1000 camera for my, may not be yours, nature photography. This is going to be part 2. Welcome to part 2. It's been a while since I put part 1 online. Part 1 covered changing the center of gravity of the camera, shifting it forward, sun filter use, and we're able to photograph sunspots, basic essentials including carrying case, etc., and attaching a red dot sighter. Part 2 in this video covers an external microphone, a Merlin bird sound identification equipment, it's an app, and the P1000 as a hand caddy. You'll see how I can do that. Using a P1000 field monitor on field trips, rainy day protection, and photographing moonbirds. So let me put some slides in from part 1. I accept no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or the completeness of the information and materials contained in this 2-part video. That also covers how you use this information. Now, no entity is sponsoring this video. All equipment shown on the videos I personally paid for. So let's define what an accessorize is. To provide or complement a garment, I like that, kind of, a fashion accessory. Doesn't have to be useful. And some of the synonyms are show off, beautify, dress up, decorate, ornament. So these videos are about sharing information on equipment that I found useful or at least important for the ambience of my total outfit. In some cases, errors I have made in trying to reach my goals, if I ever do reach my goals. Trying to get the most out of what I have and my average photography skills, and different nature photography situations and my attempt to meet their challenges. I also want to indicate that all bird photos on this video were made with a Nikon P1000 unless stated otherwise. Pictures of equipment were made with an iPhone SE. So, accessories need a place to mount on the Nikon P1000. My previous camera, the Nikon B700, which I don't think is made anymore, didn't have a hot shoe, but the P1000 does. Another important reason for me to have upgraded to this camera model. So I want to show you how I modified the P1000 hot shoe mount. Initially, I had bought the Nikon red dot sighter, but it gave me problems because I kept putting it on and taking it off the camera, and I had to readjust it each time. But I had another red dot sighter from my astronomy equipment, and in order to get it attached to the Nikon P1000, I had to put in an adapter. And the adapter is this silver plate, which I sprayed with black, paint. And the reason I like this is because there are 2 screws that are put in here, so it's kind of like a permanent mount. So every time I slide in and out the red dot sighter, it's aligned just great. And so here's the red dot, the sighter. You can see I've glued on the side of it an extra cold shoe. There's one on the other side as well. And on the right side, you don't see it, I made sure the glue did not cover the clamping screws that hold the sighter on the adapter. Tell you a little bit more about that later. So let's look at hearing aids first. When I bought the system, I decided it would be useful to have an external microphone. And I don't know much about microphones, but what looked interesting in the online shopping site was this Rode VideoMic camera mount shotgun microphone. It took a 9-volt battery, has an option of an 80 hertz high pass filter, but it didn't have a case. I was really disappointed on that. If I had to do this again, I would at least find one that would protect the microphone when it's not in use. And here it is on the left side, using the mount I glued onto the red dot sighter. And I weighed it. As you know from the first video, I weigh all this equipment. It weighs 4.43 pounds. However, I had all this extra material that fitted into the hot shoe, and I decided that if I just wanted to attach the microphone to the P1000, I would have to actually have an adapter to the adapter. So on the very right, I have a cold shoe, and then what I did was I glued to the bottom of that from an old camera, pieces of that camera, another cold shoe that slides onto the Astromatic adapter. It's all pressure fitted, and so I was able to put the microphone on the P1000 even when this other adapter was screwed onto it. And so here's what the Rode looks like with the adapter of an adapter. So I want to show you a clip of this. What I'm going to do is it's the Eurasian collared dove, and there's also a house sparrow in the background. And I'm going to try and show you this clip right now. Okay, that's without the microphone. Plug it back in. Here's the microphone. Great blue heron comes in. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. But, you know, I thought since I had all this material, I could actually use the P1000 as a camera caddy for the microphone. And I want to show you how that works. There is actually an app called Merlin in which if you record in the field the bird singing, it will give you what the bird's species is, or at least some choices. There's also another one which is a pay app called Song Sleuth that does the same thing. And so here's what Merlin is. It's from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. You can see on the left side that there's something called a sound ID. And if you click on that, you see the image on the right, and you can press the green button. It says get as close to the bird as you can, hold still and press the record button. And so what I did was, while I was taking the video with the microphone hooked up to the camera, I also had my iPhone, and I started to record the same sound. And you can see on the top, you see a sonogram, and then in the middle, it tells you what the two birds it thinks are there. That's really kind of neat because it can separate the two birds, even though it's recording from a single microphone and a single time period. And there it is. It accurately recorded that there was a Eurasian collared dove there and a house sparrow. So I decided it might be nice to just take the iPhone and attach it directly to the, let's say, to the camera. That would be a way I wouldn't have to keep working with the iPhone. Now I should mention here that after I took this picture, I got an anti-glare screen protector for the iPhone that makes quite a difference. And that's from some digiscoping apparatus that clamps the iPhone to a small rig that would then that would fit into a cold shoe. And so it would look like this. It would be kind of a hands-off operation that I could have the iPhone hooked up directly to the camera, at least physically, not electronically. And here is what it looked like when I used my adapter to the adapter and didn't hook it up to the red dot sighter. Now the other possibility also would be that I could take the microphone on the left, the shotgun microphone, and hook that directly into the iPhone using an adapter. The adapter is in the white area that hooks up to the bottom of the iPhone. And there was some interesting information from eBird about choosing should I use an external microphone to record birds. Is that really needed? Do I just need to have the iPhone and not have the shotgun microphone? And I quote from the article, and you can see it here, that a variety of external microphones are available specifically for smartphones and are compatible with Merlin. Most are so small that they do not make much of a difference compared to the built-in microphones on smartphones. In general, using good recording technique makes more of a difference for smartphone recordings than purchasing a small external microphone. However, if you have a shotgun microphone, a simple cable or adapter can allow you to connect it to your smartphone. These types of highly directional microphones absolutely do make a difference in recording quality. And you had an indication of that just by the Nikon P1000 recording the sound with and without the microphone attached. Okay. The next accessory I want to talk about is the use of a field monitor on field trips. And I have a YouTube video on Nikon P1000 for group field trips, a spotting scope alternative. And this was done about 2 years ago when the pandemic was starting. And I recently actually had another YouTube video on leading birding field trips, building birding skills. And I want to emphasize some material from both of these. And that is, if you go online now and you find out how these field trips are being operated during the pandemic, there are warnings like don't share binoculars, field guides, or spotting scopes except with members of your immediate household unit. Don't share optics or other equipment. There will be no shared views through spotting scopes and no loaner binoculars. Or these, we will not be able to loan binoculars or share optics with visitors this fall. Bring your own binoculars and telescope. Sharing of equipment not recommended. Do so at your own risk. And so a lot of nature preserves and people who lead field trips have invested a lot of money in scopes and loaner binoculars, etc. What are they going to do? And I would recommend that you might look at a super zoom camera with a field monitor. The advantages are that the participants don't touch the optical setup. They don't come close to the tripod. The unit is about half the price of a high-level spotting scope setup. You need to get a good tripod as well. And you end up with a multiple-use camera. And it reduces the number of scopes needed for the field trip. So I want to show you a little bit from those YouTube videos, just to give you an indication of the power of something like the P1000 and the field monitor. So here I am at Dana Point Harbor. There's an osprey 1,300 feet away on the outer jetty on the top of that tower. And I'm going to show you, we're going to go from 60 power to 1/2 power. This is bird mode. So there's the osprey, and start the video, a little bit shaking the camera as we go 1,300 feet away. I have a lens hood here that I could have collapsed so you wouldn't see this vignetting. The advantage would be also that once you have the bird, you would take a picture of it, and then you can magnify the picture. What I just showed you in the previous was optical power, but you can do a digital power as well. Even if the bird flies away, you can do things. And this was my first attempt to do this. It's a little bit awkward. The cable is too long. I can't see through where it's positioning. And so here is my equipment. This is from that video. The Nikon, the Field World 7-inch ultra bright field monitor. Different batteries. The batteries can be very heavy, like on the upper left, or a smaller one. And I found out that the Nikon's remote shutter release did not seem to work with the field monitor plugged into the camera. A remote shutter release with the receiver plugged into the bottom of the P1000 sockets did work. So with the red dot setup, it's a little bit more complicated. We have the red dot sighter. We have the adapter that's permanently on my camera. We have the remote shutter release. And this one looked like it was adequate. I didn't realize it would take some very specialized batteries. So you might want to check that when you do a remote shutter. And it fits into the cold shoe that was glued to the left side of the red dot sighter. You can see the socket is down there. Now here is the right side. I want to emphasize that when I glued that shoe on, that it did not cover over the heads of the adjusting screws that clamp down from the red dot sighter onto the adapter. And I looked around, and previously I had a cage, and I took part of the cage. I screwed in another cold shoe on the right side, an extension for a shoe on the bottom. I also put in an extra washer here to level the top. And so that slides in on the right side, and now I can look straight ahead, make it a lot more convenient. I also put in some shims, some very thin copper shims, because there's still a looseness there when I put in the apparatus. The next thing, of course, what you need to worry about is the cables. So my field monitor cables were only now 1.64 feet, HDMI, 90-degree angle, micro, HDMI male to HDMI male cable connector, and needed a right angle and a left angle besides the cable, as you'll see. And then also you got to be careful about this HDMI adapter, 90 and 270 degree right angle HDMI male to female adapter. So it's a little bit hard to explain that. Let me show you. Now this was the original one where the HDMI just connected directly into the field monitor. It was too long, and it was just messy. So here's a shorter cable. You can see with the adapter between the field monitor and the cable, there's an adapter that you can either have the cable going up or going down. And you may have something on the right, like the microphone. You don't want the cable going down. Although if there is nothing attached there, it's probably the most convenient. And then when it gets attached, the cable to the other end, you want the attachment going with the cable going up, because obviously if it went down, it would interfere with the remote shutter release. So there are things you got to plan on in advance. And it could be weighed quite a bit. It's 5.81 pounds with a smaller battery. I've also included the microphone here and the remote shutter. And 5.81, but with the bigger battery, it can weigh 6.5 pounds. compared to that with the spotting, so there's 6.24 pounds. Compare that to something like an 80 millimeter Swarovski scope, a 3.74. So it is a little bit awkward to carry this setup. All right, let's look at rainy day attire. The Nikon P1000 is now waterproof, and you don't want to risk damaging this expensive piece of equipment. So, attire dressing for lovely weather for ducks. So what I did, and I developed this with the Nikon B700 initially, was I had a front-mounted ring that had a UV filter in the front to protect it, and then I also had a monitor viewer. I also had a waterproof sleeve. So you're looking at a 3.4 magnification viewfinder, and you're looking at a 72 millimeter lens extension ring with a UV filter in front of that, and that is screwed into a 77 millimeter adapter that will fit into the P1000. Now the monitor viewer came with a kind of an eyepiece that shutted out the sun. I cut off that extra material, so it just the same all the way around the circle. Now Photoshop makes these waterproof covers. They did not have it in whitish, so I got it with this cameo color. You can see it extended, and because I couldn't see the controls, obviously, what I did was I took some Velcro stripping and I cut out little squares so that I could feel the roughness of some of these buttons, and I put that roughness on 3 of these so I can maneuver things without seeing the buttons. However, if it's raining really hard and I needed to go out, such as on a Christmas bird count, I would probably use my Nikon B700, bought May 2017, as a 20 megapixel, 24 to 1440 millimeter focal length. And it has its own Photoshop cover. I would use the front extension tube with the UV filter, and then the 3.4 monitor viewer. Okay. Night out, evening wear. This is a black-crowned night heron. I want to tell you about my experiences shooting migrating birds over the face of the moon. And eventually I got an equatorial mount. I also got a battery-operated drive, and was able to use the Moon Mood manual focus to start taking pictures of migrating birds. These were movies, videos. And I have a couple of YouTube videos on this. The one I recommend you see for information about the technique is the one about migrating birds across the harvest moon. And I'm going to show you 2 flyovers from that 2021 harvest moon YouTube video. I use grayscale for the moon's color. So here's September 20th, 9:18 p.m. This should be very easy to see, a bird moving across the moon. Isn't that neat? But what I've done is I've slowed things down to 1/16 of a speed on that YouTube video and 300%. And you can see the wing action of the bird as it goes across. But this is a relatively large silhouette. Most birds you will see going across the moon are much smaller than that. So here is a bird that's going to be seen first, where I put the start, and then leaves the moon disk where it says end, and it's going to go by Tycho Crater. But in order to make things easier for you, I've actually given you kind of like a bowling alley fences. So on the count of 3, you see a very small bird from the start. You look at the start. 1, 2, 3. There it goes. Halfway. So that's one of the migrating birds. However, and I'll show you that again in 300% and also slowed down. You can see even though it's pretty small, you can even see the wing beats. So the Nikon P1000 isn't really designed for this. It might be better to have really high-speed photography here. But, I was delighted with what I got. But the most spectacular flight occurred on April 2022. I have this YouTube video out where moon watching for birders, are you ready for a virtual field trip? And before the coastal clouds came in, I had a field day in terms of birds crossing the moon. And I'm going to show you one of the transits that was spectacular. Even this one I'm using for the title of this YouTube video, you can just make out a flock of birds that were flying across the moon's surface. So I'm going to play this. The coastal clouds are starting to move in. They're moving in from right to left. And I think you can see them. And you're going to see a really spectacular flight of a flock of birds going across the moon. Just spectacular, wasn't it? Isn't it spectacular? Beautiful. What? Oh, you didn't see that? You didn't see that? Well, let me show you why you didn't see that. Because these birds are so high that they're just at the resolution that the camera is picking up. In addition to that, they're in a line. There are a couple dozen here. They're not flying in this direction. If you've ever seen birds flying in a V or even one arm of a V, they're not flying in that direction. They're flying this one. And so the lead bird is there. And I'm going to show you in 1/8 speed, make it a little bit easier for you, this flock of birds. So click on that, look on the bottom, and here they come. And just make it out through the clouds. Now the clouds are going to clear up a little bit. And you can see that line. It's almost halfway up. Getting clearer. You can see the individual dots. It's hard to figure out how many species or how many individuals there were. Just a surprise. And I'm just lucky I even detected it when I looked at the video. Something else. So I'm going to show you this again, what I showed you the first. So ignore the clouds going from right to left. Look on the bottom to the right, and it's going to come very quickly. And, well, they must be going up already. All the way up. Well, it takes practice to see this, and I'm doing this live, this narration, and I must admit I didn't see them going up, but they're there. You got to have a good monitor to see that. So I hope you enjoyed this 2-part series. This was part 2 about accessorizing a Nikon P1000 camera for my nature photography, which is really just documentation sort of photography. And I hope you have fun dressing up your own P1000 camera. Keep looking for additional things to add to this setup. This has been another of my JDW talks. I have YouTube talks on census resources, Ellis Island, natural history topics, and virtual birding field trips. So go out and use those, that optics, tremendous engineering feat, the Nikon P1000 camera. Good birding.